We're live. Welcome to another week of S2S wine time. So if you're a regular follower, you'll notice that last week we had a healthy discussion on what to call this segment, whether we were calling it S2S or wine time. So we've gone with a combination. We've called it S2S wine time. And this particular series is going to be called the Like a Mother series because we're discussing the book. Yes. Cool. So for those of you who are just joining us, this is number 3 of S2S Wine Time, where Jane and I are talking candidly about my upcoming book launch, Like a Mother. So we're doing a chapter every Friday night. We're up to chapter 2 and 3.
I read 2 and 3 today. Yes.
So if you haven't watched the last 2 videos, that's fine. But there are videos on my YouTube as well as my Instagram where you can catch up as we sort of talk about the first bit of my book.
Did you tag me in this video as well?
Well, I used to be able to make you a collaborator and then you could post it on yours.
Yeah, but you haven't done that this time.
Well, you do it after you post.
Do you? Okay.
But it didn't let me do it last time. Anyway,
that's not irrelevant.
Technical issues.
So this week, each week I read a couple of chapters and then we talk about it.
Yeah.
And I just have an early edition of the book. I actually haven't read the whole thing through. So as I'm reading it, I'm like making notes about things to talk to you about. And I've actually got a couple of sticky questions. Ooh. And I don't know. This could go anywhere.
All right.
This could go anywhere. We could be in a full spat or we could make some really good TV. One way to know. So chapter 2 and chapter 3, actually, my notes are just sort of from the whole 2 chapters. I can't remember what chapter 3 was called, but chapter 2 was all about flexible identity and defined purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I was reading through and one of the things that you said is that we get really wrapped up in our children's needs and it's easy to forget our own.
Yeah.
Which is something that we sort of say all the time, isn't it? You need to look after yourself and not just your children. Yeah. But what you sort of took it a bit further and you said when we do that, what it's actually doing is it's disconnecting us from our purpose.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think so because I wrote it. I hope I get what you mean.
Disconnecting from the bigger picture.
Are you asking me to comment on that? You're not the best interviewer.
Yes, I'm asking you to comment. I do, yes. Talk about that.
You want me to talk about what? I don't get what you're asking me to talk
about. Just talk about how our bigger purpose. We're off to a flying start.
Our bigger purpose. So do you want me to just talk about this chapter?
Okay, here. I'll read my next bit. This
All right.
help. Is another one of my notes was that we tend to identify with what we do and not who we are.
Yeah.
Okay, this might make more sense. Yeah. Because who we are is our purpose.
Yes.
We are our purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I might starting to make more sense now. You are your constant. You are your purpose.
Yes.
But when we're putting all of our efforts into our children, we disconnect from that.
Yeah. So it's just I think you're never going to get a mother out there who doesn't feel the identity shift when you become a mum.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of write that the average age of a woman becoming a mother in Australia is 31.
Yeah.
So if you think about how many years we have establishing ourselves and feeling like we get into a rhythm of who we are and we feel like we know who we are, then to go through this massive change of having children, it's oh my goodness. And the story that we sort of tell ourselves or that we feel is who we are is more linked to what we do rather than who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, before kids, I played netball, I practiced yoga, I was working in schools. And then when I became a mother, none of that was happening anymore. And I was sort of feeling left who am I? Who even am I? And I really started to dig deep into realizing that who I am isn't what I do. So those are the things that I was doing. But to be myself again, when I went through this identity crisis, to feel myself again, I thought I had to do what I was doing before. And I thought my default was just to try and do the things that I was doing before so I felt like me. And then it sort of goes, the story that I sort of shape in this chapter is to navigating that identity crisis, and also to lead us towards the path of it's not what we do and it's actually who we are and who we become and the energy that we bring. And I think most people wake up in the morning and you say, what's your purpose? And a lot of people probably don't really know.
Yeah, it feels like it has to be really deep.
Yeah.
But like,
Is that your phone? I don't know. It's just asking me to trust.
Yeah.
Anyway. What was I saying? Do you even know?
Yeah. I actually totally lost it as well. Oh, let me
lost the plot. So we're talking about the identity crisis and the shift, and we tend to sort of really hang on to what we do.
About our purpose.
Yeah, so it's like when you wake up, a lot of people would say, what's your purpose in life? And not many people really know.
Yeah.
And it's only really until we have kids that we realize we don't really know anymore. And it's like, oh, and then
why am I here?
Yeah,
what am I doing?
What am I here for? What am I doing? It's a real opportunity to redefine all of our values and to go, okay, literally every single thing in my life has changed. Literally everything. Now it's an opportunity to, instead of just trying to rebuild and like imagine this statue breaking, and instead of trying to piece the bits back together, we're just going, oh, it's broken, let's create something really new.
Yeah.
And you have the opportunity, not to say that, oh, I was practicing yoga before, like I can still do that after I become,
it just might look different.
But it might look different, it might feel different, and it might be like, okay, what is it that I really loved about yoga? It was because it was competitive, it was because for me it was social, and it was something I could do just for me. For example, I can still do an activity that you worried about my nails.
Yeah, I was looking at them.
They're so disgusting. I could still tick those 3 criteria doing something else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so I could, I could. What I actually did was I downloaded that Couch to 5K app.
Yeah.
It was challenging, even though I was running by myself. It was social.
You made me run one with you.
Because I could share the app with you. You could see what I was doing. We could do it together. So I found something else that I could do that ticked those boxes, I suppose. So this chapter is all about how we see ourselves, how we identify, and how that is so big in creating our reality. So we talk about language in that chapter.
Yes.
We talk about mission and how our mission and our purpose isn't found, in my opinion, and it's not found in our careers, it's not found in our achievements, it's not even found in motherhood, to be honest. And sometimes that's our default. Like if you were asked what's your purpose, it's to love my children and to raise my children. Like, yes, that's honorable, but to do that, but to raise the best children that I can, I need to be
just your authentic self,
my best and authentic self, and I need to be able to express my true self and to give my best gifts to the world. And to do that, my mission statement is me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be something beautiful and plastered on your wall, or like, yes, it can, but it can also be the way you dress. It can be what you post. It can be the parties that you go to. Like it's your way of being.
Yeah.
And I think that is a helpful way to reframe it when we're faced with this identity crisis as new mums.
Yeah.
Not even new mums, but as mums in general.
Yeah. No, I really like that. Like, and I actually distinctively have a moment of realizing that I'm my purpose.
Yeah.
Can you remember that? I think I called you. And the only thing I could say was like, my purpose is me.
Yeah.
Like, it's me.
Yeah.
And like, there's no other way to explain it other than be like, I'm my purpose.
Yes. How good is that?
I know. I actually remember the moment when that landed.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just talking about like being, sometimes it's easy for us to go, my parenting, being a mother is my purpose. But by being you, by being your authentic self, you're not inspiring your children, you're instilling it in them.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love that.
Yes. You're instilling it in them because they're watching you, and it's not even something you have to explain or teach them when they get older.
You don't explicitly have to teach
because they're watching you be your authentic self.
Yeah, and it gives them permission to be their authentic self.
Absolutely. Amen. So what you had in order to help help us with this identity shift of not thinking about like, you know, I'm not a netballer.
Yeah.
You know, I'm someone who enjoys team
sports.
Yeah. So you were sort of talking about reframing, and you sort of encourage us to check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
What does that checking in sort of look like?
So to give a little bit of context, I think if we see our identity as something that we cling to really tightly, or something that we see as really rigid, it's not flexible and it's not malleable, which means it doesn't move or adapt when we evolve. And there's no bigger evolution than when a mum becomes a mum. So if we see ourselves, or we don't cling so much to what we do and even just who we think we are and who we perceive ourselves to be, if we have a little less,
like we're not clinging on to it,
then we can adapt and change. And one way to do that is to not be like, oh, I'm a clean freak, because then when you have kids, your house is never clean again. You're the exception.
I have it together.
You have it together. What can I say? But I can say I'm someone who likes to feel organised and know where things are. So you can see how that's a little bit of a shift, but it means that when I have a messy house, my self-worth isn't tied to it so tightly. Does that make sense? So I, believe it or not, I used to have a tidier house than I have. Probably not Jane's standards, but it was, you know, it was pretty clean. And then when I couldn't keep it clean anymore, it was like, oh, like I'm failing. I'm doing a shitty job. Like, because my self-worth was entangled in that
identity.
Whereas we can start with language to help us loosen the grip a little bit.
Yeah. So every time you catch yourself in those thoughts, you just shift it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And you get better at it.
Yeah. So at the end of each section, I think I might have said this in a previous video, in the end of each section, I actually have some really practical ways, and the idea is like how to be with these concepts. So I'll talk about these concepts and give some practical examples throughout, and then at the end of each section it's like, okay, here's some practical application tools on how to actually do it, and how to do this work, what it actually looks like.
Yeah, good. Because it is like, oh, there's
like, that's all well and good, but how do I do it? Where do I start?
do that in my day-to-day life when I'm running after 3 children? Okay, so you didn't tell me you were pregnant with Knox for ages.
Didn't I?
No, I actually distinctly remember the phone call because you peed on the stick at home.
Yeah.
And Rachel was there.
Yeah.
And then you did tell me for like a few days after that.
Oh, is that a bone to pick?
No, not at all. I'm just saying that because this sort of will dive into our next conversation. But it was so strange because you're processing it.
Yeah.
And that's like, for you not to tell me something like that is like a big deal. That's just, I'm just sort of reiterating how much of a shock that was.
Yeah.
But it needed to happen. So you explain. I was so excited because I was pregnant too.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, are you pregnant? Yeah. So this is something we haven't spoken about before, and I've actually written difficult convo. So you had a couple of years of the gap year after school.
Yes.
You worked in a school setting. Then you went and did beauty therapy.
Yeah.
Then you did teaching.
Yeah.
Then you did yoga.
Jeez, I wear a few hats, don't
yes.
I?
Then you did yoga. And then you were in the process of working with a partnership in a business sense, and you were going to overtake and own that business.
Yes.
So from the outside, this is me, like, because I've been watching you obviously forever, and then this book is like what was actually going on internally for you.
Yes.
But on the outside,
oh, I see where you're going.
On the outside, it was yoga, it was teaching, it was business, and from the outside, how judgy. But I was like, fuck, Emily, like. It looked flaky.
Oh.
And it used to frustrate me because I was like, you're an intelligent woman, commit to something.
Yeah.
Like, you're being flaky, just
Yeah,
commit
yeah.
and see. I was like, see something through. See something through.
Ooh.
I know.
Record again.
But what you're actually doing on the inside in here is that you were trusting and listening to your inner wisdom.
Yeah.
So you were not going to do anything that didn't light you up or didn't feel like it wasn't a whole body yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same's been for this whole book publishing process. Like, you only went with the editors and the whatever is involved. Like, you only went with the people who like made you feel yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So from the outside it was like, oh, which way?
Yeah.
But on the inside you were just following your inner wisdom. And I guess that's my main point where I'm actually getting to.
So is this your way of apologising?
So what I'm getting to is that, like, that's ballsy.
Thank you.
In trusting that.
Yeah, yes.
Regardless of what it looks like to those around you, even to those closest to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you don't feel like a full body yes with something, it's okay to be redirected.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what my question was with that, but
that's just an insight that you had.
That's a really big insight that I have. So I guess the lesson was you were trusting your intuition.
Yeah.
And you know what? That led you to here. And that led you to being your true, authentic self, which we're talking about. And that led you to serving others by just being you. So you can talk about that if you like.
Well, I am, like, my mind is literally ticking over and over and over because of I've done trauma training, and it's actually a sign of trauma and a dysregulated nervous system to be flaky.
Say that again.
So if you've experienced trauma in your life, you can actually then develop where you don't trust yourself and and you're flaky.
Okay.
So it is actually a sign of trauma to not see things through.
Oh, so I'm off the mark.
So no. I think I'm sort of like, I'm in an hour, do I go down this hole or not? But I think I'm going to come back.
Well, that's my last point.
I am going to do a full circle, so trust me, this is going somewhere.
Okay.
It is a sign of trauma where someone doesn't. So trauma, what I mean is like my body or my nervous system wasn't able to fight back, or its boundaries were crossed, and you learn that you can't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself anymore. So it's hard to make decisions. You might make decisions and then change your mind. So it's interesting. We're going deep into our psyche right now. It's interesting that you bring that up because if you see my evolution, I possibly was acting out of a trauma response where I didn't trust myself. My boundaries were crossed. I didn't have any personal boundaries. So I didn't trust myself making any decisions. And I could have... No, but then if you listen, my evolution has been learning to trust myself. And through the work that I've done, through becoming a mother, and then that leading me to doing like central somatics course and trauma release and coaching, through that, then I've learnt to trust myself again. And like I'm evolved and I'm changing into what my life could possibly look like now. And I sort of trust myself to make decisions. Not to say that I don't doubt myself, or not to change that I'm not going to change, but hopefully there's a little bit more stability now in my creation process, that I've got a little bit more consistency and I'm trusting myself. So it's really interesting that you bring that up, because this is the first time that's actually been brought to my awareness.
Okay.
Because I see it in others. When others are being flaky, I go, oh, like that's annoying, but it's probably a trauma response. And then to actually be shed the light that it was probably my trauma response, which is probably true. And then sort of seeing how that sort of made a complete circle.
Yeah, and it's got you here.
It's got me here. But I think there is, like, we can't just say, oh, it's a trauma response, whatever. I think there is definitely merit in letting go and trusting the universe and letting life guide you, which is something that we talk about in here.
Yeah.
And a really brilliant question that I love to ask is, if you think back on your life, the best things that have happened to you, they're not something that you chased and they're not something that you forced. They were probably coincidences. Like, think about my yoga course. It wasn't something that I planned. I overheard a friend talking about it at your engagement party, and I thought, oh, that sounds good. And it fitted perfectly in my school holiday, so I went and did it. I met my husband on the dance floor in Melbourne.
I have no idea what Rachel and I were doing, because
you were off drinking whiskey with the Perrys.
Yeah.
So
it's Rachel.
Yeah.
dancing around our
picnic basket.
We take it to the races. Yes.
Like,
Good
that's
times.
a coincidence. Like, I didn't plan my second son Knox, but he's the best thing, you know. So I think it's an invitation to actually look back and surrender and let life guide you. So it's not to say I'm going to, like, float back like a dead fish and just fucking whatever. It's like listening and guiding you and taking up opportunities that life will you know, put in front of you. So
are there ways that we can learn to trust ourselves?
Yes.
Okay, tell me.
The simplest way to learn to trust yourself would be to practice. Oh, there's so many good ones in this book, but one of them that I write about is practice some loving discipline.
Okay.
So that can be as simple as, for me, it was as simple as, an example would be filling up a glass of water before I go to bed every night and putting it on my bedside table, that every morning I drink it.
Yeah.
So, and I do that over and over again, and that is discipline. It's something really small.
I have heard discipline's the biggest form of self-love, and now that's giving it a whole another level. Yeah.
And then what that did for me was, instead of, oh, I'm useless, I can never follow up on anything, I'm flaky, that learnt, I've got my own back.
Yes.
I can do it.
Yes.
I trust myself. Even if it's like, yes, I can do it. I can drink a glass of water in the morning.
Yeah.
How that ripple effect. And I was doing this when I was doing that couch to 5.
Yeah.
So it was really helpful, because I would run the whole way. I would finish off what I start.
Yes.
And I would not skip a day.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I just practiced that one little thing, it rippled into big things. So that is a good way of how to do trust.
I was like, fuck, how do we learn to trust ourselves? Like, is there anything we can do?
Yeah.
I actually have heard that remind me of the saying of, like, every time you tell yourself you're going to do something,
do it,
and you don't, you chip away at your self-worth.
Yes.
So every time you're, I'm going to get up early, go to the gym, or like, it doesn't even have to be that big of a deal.
No,
just
be like, drinking a glass of water.
Yeah, like, and every time you don't, no one knows that you do.
Yeah.
And every time you go back on it, you just chip away. You just keep chipping away. So instead of looking at it that way, you can build it up. By just sticking to something so simple.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
What's good about drinking water every morning?
It's just obviously drinking first thing in the morning is a good thing for your body, but that's just a simple practice.
Just a practice.
That's
just about the water.
It's just a small promise to yourself. So it's not necessarily about the drinking water, even though, side note, drinking glass of water is good for you.
I just thought, is there some kind of biological benefit of having the water first thing in the morning?
So that's a really interesting
We went
conversation
so deep this week.
These are really interesting. But it was all about, I think it circled and tied in quite nicely, because it all sort of came down to self-trust.
Yes.
And a little bit of information about how it can look in your life, and how not trusting yourself can look like not following through and not, and being flakiness. But then what that actually looks like when you do the work and you practice self-loving discipline, you look in and you do the work on your own trauma and you start to heal it, it starts to look a little bit more consistent. Would you say that now with my life, or am I still thinking?
No, I don't think about it anymore.
No, you're fine. But it's interesting. And not to say everyone flaky is, but I just think that's a really interesting conversation.
Yeah. I did write difficult convo down.
Yes.
But that was it.
That's
That pretty much. But I am very glad to say that we had a name drop. She finally said my name, Jane.
Oh, in my book.
Page 41, people.
Oh.
Page 41, we said my name. Wasn't an Instagram handle, but it was my name. So
we'll take that.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for watching. These links are going to be, you can rewatch the video if you need to on my socials, but I'm also posting it on YouTube as well. So that's news from us. If you want to come to the launch party.
Yes, come to the launch. It's going to be so much fun.
You can actually DM me privately and I'll send you the link because it's still on the DL.
Yeah, okay.
Because we're still there's limited seating.
Yeah. Okay. It's
Yeah.
gonna be so fun.
So fun.
All right.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. You can tell you've got makeup on and I don't.
Yeah, maybe you should put some on.
I should have. I had some on and I took it off.
Why?
Because I wanted a shower. Already got tickets, Lozzie. Yes, you do.
Bring out the Hildebrandt dance moves.
Oh, yes.
Love it.
And